Hello and welcome to Tag Guides Tech Talk. Today we're going to be talking about the GTX 1080ti. So Nvidia recently had an event on February 28th at the Game Developers Conference where they released information on their new GTX 1080ti. So what we know so far is that the graphics card is going to come out on the week of March 5th. They didn't give a specific date at the event, but it's going to come out sometime that week. Now for pricing, it's going to be at a whopping $699. And with that price, it's going to lower the GTX 1080. It's going to lower it down to $499. So that's a pretty cool price drop for the 1080. It makes a little bit better value for an already kick-ass graphics card. Now let's get into the specs that they talked about. So the graphics card is going to come with 11 gigabytes of GDDR5X memory, with a 352-bit memory bus and 484 gigabytes per second of memory bandwidth. I think it's a little weird that the card has 11 gigabytes. It's not an even number that most cards have, but I guess their 1060 has a 3 gig model, so I guess we're okay with that now. But anyways, massive amounts of memory and a larger memory bus than the 1080. It's pretty sweet. This card is probably going to kick ass. So it's got a boost clock up to 1.6 gigahertz, 3,584 CUDA cores, and a maximum display of 7,680 by 4,320 at 60 hertz. Now, I doubt that you have any games or anything that is going to display at that resolution, but you can do it if you want to. Now, another big point about this card is that it's only coming with 3 display ports and 1 HDMI port. They're killing the DVI port on their graphics card. But it will come with a dongle from DisplayPort to DVI, so if you still have a DVI monitor, you can still use it. And it's pretty sweet that they're including this dongle in the box. Most other things that are killing proprietary ports at the moment aren't using or giving you dongles, so at least they're giving you one, but we're in the dongle age now, so you gotta deal with that. As far as the card size goes, the height, length, and width is going to be 4.376 inches by 10.5 inches, and it's going to be a 2-slot card. So this will fit in most of your standard cases. Might not fit in some of your tiny mini ITX cases that you might have. So let's talk about thermals. Nvidia is saying that the card will have a 250 watts of TDP. And just to put that in perspective for you, I got a few other cards you can compare it against. It's the same amount of TDP as the Titan X. The 1080, the regular 1080, it has 180 watts of TDP. The 1070 has 150 watts. The 1060 has 120 watts. And then AMD's RX 480 has 150 watts. Now these are all according to the manufacturer's websites and overclocks and other things you do, and aftermarket cards from board partners and stuff like that might increase these values. But that's just what AMD and Nvidia are saying. Now this also comes with the tag of having a 600 watt recommended power supply. So this is not a huge power supply, but it's not a small one by any means. So you're going to have to spend a little bit of money to get that nice power supply, which you should probably do anyways, because this is a $700 graphics card. So Nvidia said that it's going to have a 35% boost over the 1080. Which is it's quite a substantial boost compared to their other TI cards in the past. And if we're looking at just benchmarking performance and do an exact 35% boost, which this probably won't work this way, but if you look at PC Gamer's benchmarks at 4K, I'll link that in the description below. Ashes of Singularity, they clocked at 4K was 81.4 frames per second with the 1080. So if we do our 35% boost, that'll give the GTX 1080ti 109.9 frames per second. The Division, they got 47.4 frames per second. That would give the Ti 64 frames per second. Doom had 59.2 frames per second at 4K, and that would give the 1080 Ti 79.2 frames per second, which is pretty impressive for 4K and a great game like Doom. Now, Grand Theft Auto 5, they had also 59.2 frames per second on the 1080, and that would give the 1080 Ti also 79.2 frames per second. Then Rise of the Tomb Raider had 50.1 frames per second on the 1080 and 60, and then with our math we would do 67.64 frames per second on the 1080 Ti. Now the Witcher 3, they got 44.8 frames per second, and with our conversion, the 1080 Ti would get 60.48 frames per second. So with those numbers, this looks like it'd be a kick-ass card at 4K, and we're finally going to have a card that can crush the 60 frames per second mark on 4K with all the newest games. And so if this 35% bump is true, this is going to be pretty sweet, and it's going to be quite the challenge for AMD to come back with a better graphics card and hit this point. So it looks like they might have to do the price performance thing that they're good at and do a better graphics card at that value. But overall, it's an impressive card, and we're excited to see actual benchmarks when they come out next week, and maybe eventually get our hands one on ourselves. We're so lucky. But that's all we got for today. This has been Tag Guides, Tech Talks, talking about the new GTX 1080 Ti from Nvidia. If you guys like this video, give me a thumbs up and hit the subscribe down below, and we'll catch you in the next one. Thank you.